Funding for the production of Folks is made possible in part by a grant from Union National Life Insurance, serving Louisiana and the South since 1926, a family-managed corporation providing whole life insurance.
Straight ahead on Folks, why don't more blacks join the Republican Party? We'll talk to the state chairman of the Republican Party to explore the answer to that question and more. We'll also meet the members of the exotic La Troupe Macandal as they share music and dance from Haiti, all in today's edition of Folks. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Folks. I'm Sonya Masingale. The Republican Party was the party of Abraham Lincoln, the president credited with the emancipation of slaves in America. In the brief and confusing era of Reconstruction, when blacks became politically active in Louisiana, they represented all of the popular political parties. But following Reconstruction, with the disenfranchisement of blacks, years passed before either the Democratic or the Republican parties took any interest in the black vote. But we must remember it was Franklin Roosevelt, a Democratic president with more liberal attitudes, who first became popular with blacks. In succeeding years, the integration of the armed forces by Harry Truman, another Democrat, coupled with a growing civil rights movement and an effort to register more black voters, encouraged blacks to join the Democratic Party in increasing numbers. And Republicans still did not take much interest in black voters. The Republican Party, until recently, has been perceived by blacks as an elitist, conservative political organization, but those times are changing. As the economic and political structures evolve in this country, more blacks have seen a need to participate in both political parties in order to have more impact on political issues. Later on, we will meet 3 black Republicans who will tell us about their decision to join the Republican Party. But first, we visited Bill Nungesser, the state chairman of the Republican Party, to find out how the Republican Party is evolving to include more blacks and other minorities.
Our problem in a statewide basis has been because the Republican Party nationally hasn't found the key on how to attract large numbers of the minority. I do think, though, that we've made some progress, and I think the best recent example is former Governor Treen, and I served with him for 4 years as his chief of staff. And I saw the effort he made to involve minorities in the government as well as in the party. And it was successful because I think the best measure of success is that we didn't involve blacks just to have numbers. We involved blacks to do the work, and they did it. And many of them, you mentioned one before, have carried on into other government jobs unrelated to Republicans or Dave Treen or anybody. And I think something else has happened. I think we haven't gained in the number of blacks we've attracted to the party, but I think we do have some respect from the blacks. It's not a unrealistic thing to talk to them about supporting. We have, on the other hand, we have no reluctance to support black candidates where we don't have a Republican involved. I think we've shown that in mayor elections and all the rest, and we're somebody to talk to by the blacks, where years ago they just dismissed us out of hand. You know how we feel about it. We feel, and we do feel this sincerely, not from any, that the Republican Party is the party for the blacks to come to. And we're overcoming, I believe, slowly, but we had the same problem in the South with the white Democrats.
Joining me in the studio to give us some fresh insights on black involvement with the Republican Party are 3 black Republicans. We have Mr. Andrew Brown, who's a businessman from Jeanerette, Louisiana. He's an alternate delegate to the Republican Convention. Ernie Ladd is on the steering committee for Vice President Bush. He is from Franklin, Louisiana. And Linton Ardoin is a Republican and the Assistant Secretary of the Office of State Parks, Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Welcome to folks.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, I'll start the questioning with you. Mr. Nungesser said that he feels the reason why there are so few blacks in the Republican Party is that on a national and on a local level, the Republicans have yet to find the key to attracting large numbers of a minority. What do you suppose that key is going to be?
Well, I think it's probably a combination of things, Sonya. One, we have to first of all identify some of the existing problems that peculiar to minorities. And of course, once we begin to address those particular problems, i.e., if you will, jobs and job opportunity. When we talk about opportunity and economic development, we're talking about the first people to be hired and of course, the first one to be fired in the process. If we're going to make an impact into the black community, it is, we're on record as saying that we need to go out and start creating, go into the black community and creating job opportunities. The one does not discriminate, I think, in terms of party of choice, whether or not he or she is white, but whether or not one has food in his pocket and a shelter over his home.
Mr. Ladd, are you in accordance with that? Are you in agreement with that?
I agree entirely, you know, because, as you said earlier, the last to be hired and the first to be fired in most cases, you know. It doesn't have to be a specific reason. And one of the things that the state of Louisiana is doing right now and has done, I've known some black people that graduate from Southern and from Grambling had to go to other states to get a job, you know. That it has nothing to do with whether they're a Republican or Democrat, you know. But if you educate them in the state, you should be able to house them and feed them, you know. It's not just a particular party, it's the whole structure of the state. And when you're cutting back now, I was up at Grambling, my alma mater, a couple of weeks ago, and I watched 18 people lose their position there.
That's harsh. Mr. Ardoin, what's the key to attracting more minorities to the Republican Party?
Well, I agree in what has been said by both Andrew and Ernie. And not to seem redundant, I think the key is going to be sensitivity, and sensitivity of the Republican Party to economic development issues. And that translates into job opportunities. The Republican Party is going to have to broaden its base. They're going to have to go out into the black community and really generate some genuine concern and show the majority of the black constituency that they are keenly concerned with getting the support of black voters throughout the country and, of course, here in Louisiana.
When we decided to tackle this issue of blacks in the Republican Party, I had a bit of difficulty not just locating black people who were Republicans, but in getting the ones who were proclaimed Republicans to talk about it on camera.
Sure.
One gentleman said that he was starting a business, and having been identified as a black Republican before did not help him before when looking for a job, and he was afraid that it would hurt his business. Have any of you had any experience with that kind of discrimination personally because you were a black Republican?
Oh, let me respond to that. I can go back to 1979, campaigning for then candidate Dave Treen, and I went through a difficult, one of the most difficult times, I guess, in my young, at that time, political career, having so many blacks criticize me because of the fact that I was supporting then the Republican. I think since that time, going through the experience of the Dave Treen administration, an administration that has appointed more blacks to key level positions in the state of Louisiana, and appointments to non-traditional jobs, I think created a window of opportunity for blacks. They see the Republican Party not necessarily as the enemy that it once was, but to some extent you still have many of us who feel that the Republican Party, because of some of its stance on certain issues, have been anti-black.
All right, you can't deny that many blacks view the Republican Party as elitist, conservative, and racist, if not just non-caring about civil rights. With your involvement with the party, Mr. Brown, have you found that to be true?
No, Sonya, basically what I've tried to do and attempt to do is that I always use, and of course when I ran for the mayor of the city of Jeanerette, I did get some concerns from my black constituents that I was a black Republican. However, I laid that issue to rest by simply raising 2 or 3 questions. First of all, when do you need help? And of course the response was now. And I followed that up by saying, who is the current president? And of course they said Ronald Reagan. At that point, I said, I rest my case. And I think what we have to do is become politically astute in the black community so that we can start addressing, and I also go back to another. I said, okay, now there's a hurricane coming to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. There are going to be evacuation plan taking place. Are we, as black people, going to get on one bus? Or are we going to get on 10 buses? Because that one bus might get what? Blown away. Right. So we have to become politically astute, and we in the Republican Party have made, those of you that you're sitting here, have made a commitment that we too want to become what? The Jesse Jackson of the Republican Party. Now, we don't mean Jesse per se with all of his creativity and the things that he is doing. We are simply saying that we must keep the door of opportunity open for our black community, and that's what we are committed to doing.
All right, Mr. Ladd, I'd like for you to comment on that.
Well, first of all, I like to say, first of all, the black man in the southern area throughout the United States must look at the Republican Party with an open mind. When your mind is closed, then you can't see what's good for you or what's not good for you. There are a lot of things about the Republican Party that is good for a black person as well as for a white person. But if my mother and my mother's mother and her mother's mother were Democrats, and this is all I can relate back, and every time you ask, a lot of times you ask black people about, listen to what someone has to say that's productive about the Republican Party, then they give you a history first. They want to take the conversation over and monopolize it about things that's a waste of time from the Democratic Party. But you see, one philosopher said it's like a wise wild who sit from a roost pole. The more he said, the less he heard. But the less he said, the more he heard, and the wiser he grew. If black people just close their mouths and listen and receive a message that comes to you, and I think there are a lot of good black Republican people around that can deliver a good message. And I'll admit this now, the Republican Party needs to do some things that make it more enticing for blacks to become Republicans. See, I don't need anyone to help me do bad. I can do bad all by myself. And a lot of black people can relate to that because the situation has been bad for them under the Democratic administration. It's been bad for them under the Republican administration. But who's going to go out and put the food on the table? Who's going to go out and put the new car in the garage? There are some families come from age 1 to 60 years of age and have never seen a new car in their family. There are some families eating the same food over and over. They can't change the state. But can the Republican Party do this? Did the Democratic Party, Democratic administration, do the proper plan in the state of Louisiana to make the state of Louisiana as progressive as it should have been? There are 3 states that are hurting right now. I think Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. The other part of this great United States are doing great under a Republican administration. So everything can't be bad about the Republican Party. Now, I'll say one thing about the new governor. I personally believe the governor of the state of Louisiana is going to do the best job that's been done in this state in some time. I'm not talking about the past administration, but I just think the cutback, different people put in their own program. Then the money just starts dwindling and dwindling and dwindling. Then there is no money. Somebody has to cut back and get the budget in line. Yes. And I think this governor right here is doing the proper cutback. I know a lot of black people are going to cry. Well, we're only 22% of the minorities. We're the 22% of the people in this country. So there are going to be more white people affected than there will be blacks on the cutbacks. But we might cry the loudest, but the black people, if we get together and do the first thing, put quality in our head, or get a quality education. See, if you put quality in your head, quality will come out of your head. If you put garbage in your head, then garbage will come out of your head. So what I'm saying right now, in my parish, there's a 51% dropout in students. We got to cut that down to like a 10 or 15 or 20%. 10% of all the girls become pregnant. I had children one time or another. These are some of the things. We must start the education at home and then go, so we need help here. Who can help you? If the Republican Party can help you, step into the Republican Party, let the Republican Party help you. If they can't, listen first of all. Don't come and tell about, my mama was this, my daddy was this, my mama's mama, my mama's mama's mama, on down the line. Look, if a kid has a problem on drugs today, I don't want to know what started him on drugs. I want to know what can we do to stop the problem. We want to save the kids.
Mr. Ardoin, I'd like for you to pick up the conversation there. Blacks continue to perceive the Republican Party as racist, as elitist, as conservative, and not in their favor.
That's primarily because this has been a Democratic agenda. the leadership within the ranks of the Democratic Party have always created that kind of symbolism. I think what we as black folks have to do is change that symbolism into reality. And the reality is that, as Andy alluded to, is that we are not competing with anyone within the ranks of the Democratic Party as black Republicans. We have the same agenda. Our agenda is about education. Our agenda is about creating jobs and so forth. So it's not about competition. It's about how can we exist and get equal opportunity and develop some meaningful coalitions. And this is what we are attempting to do. I have always maintained with my friends when I was criticized years ago about changing my party affiliation that the reason why I did it is because the lines were shorter. I didn't have to stand in line and become a Republican. But on a serious note, I think for too long, we as black folks have been participating in the political arena, and our participation has been too predictable. And I think we need to bring about some unpredictability.
Let me interrupt for a second. During the campaign for Paul Hardy was running for lieutenant governor, for the Democratic Party, a black organization made a commercial, said, I guess I have to take my old grandmama in a wheelchair to go and vote to keep the Republican out. See, what black people don't understand, the Mexican people got together and stopped the Frito Bandino commercial by degrading its race. The Indians got together and stopped them degrading the Indian people about every war they come up in. If the Indian win, it's great massacre. If the white man win, it's great victory. You see, it's the same thing. Each one in a battle, but they're just the name and title. If a black man speak out, he's a militant. If a white man speak out, he's got something to talk about. So all I'm saying now, first of all, let black people come together and be able to listen to one another and be able to work with one another. Put a project together, a program together that's going to be beneficial to our black children. See, stop black parents from fighting on the wrong side of the track with their kids, programming their kids with poison. This is the first thing that has to happen, and then we can go to the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. I don't want all blacks to be in the Republican Party. I don't want all blacks to be in the Democratic Party. We want a balance. We don't need no 95% versus 5%. Let's get 50% of the jobs in the black in the Republican Party, get 50% of the jobs in the Democratic Party. Let us, first of all, understand one another. We know there's a Herculean task out in front of us. We can conquer this thing. And I think right now the state of Louisiana has had the Democrats for a long period of time. And how much better are the blacks right now from the Democratic Party? I think you need to take a look at the Republican Party and find out what can happen. What will happen if you go to it with an open mind? That's all I ask.
Mr. Brown?
Yes, please.
You were about to make a comment.
Well, I think I was going to piggyback on what Linton had alluded to, is that we're concerned, we too have an agenda, and that agenda is creating jobs in our community, eliminating drugs in our community, improving the education of our school system so that our children will become participants in a society in which we all contributed to. And we go back, we come from a heritage of long line of heritage from Africa. Everybody seems to forget about the blacks' contribution to the building of America. And it didn't come under Republican or Democrats. We did this as a people. And what we're saying now is that we want to make certain that all parties are sensible and also sensitive to what? The need of the black community. That's what we're saying. That's the bottom line.
And we all look forward to a time when it's no longer an issue of black and white.
That's correct. That's correct.
Thank you very much for appearing on Folks.
Thank you.
Haiti is a land of mystery and contrast. The first black republic in the Western Hemisphere, Haiti has a violent and colorful past. La Troupe Mackendal, led by Haitian Frisner Augustine, seeks to preserve the beauty and ritual of Haiti's native music, dance, and voodoo. We met the members of La Troupe Mackendal in Lafayette at the Festival International de Louisiane. that's all for today's program. Be sure to join us next week for another edition of Folks. Bye-bye.
Funding for the production of Folks is made possible in part by a grant from Union National Life Insurance, serving Louisiana and the South since 1926, a family-managed corporation providing whole life insurance.